In today's video, I'm going to highlight how effective interpreting labs accurately could be in helping you get a good score on your USMLE. If you're looking to improve your score, you're looking to begin to perform better on all the blocks, your UWord blocks, your MBMEs and all of that, then one of the areas you want to fix is your ability to interpret lab values and answer questions accurately if they have lab values attached to them. I picked this specific question because it's pretty simple. I had it in a session I had with one of my Step 2 CK students, if short, I think 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. And this question was so simple, he missed it because he wasn't paying attention, at least to the labs. Whenever you are given lab values, two things should come to mind. Number one is you can answer the question in many scenarios using just the lab values. I encourage my students to ignore the vignette completely. The first thing you should do is try to interpret the lab values. If you can interpret the lab values, then you have a good shot at getting that question correct. Let's jump right into this question and let's see what we can make out of it. You look at this, a lot of you would look at the blood values. You go, okay, hematocrit doesn't look that bad. Hemoglobin seems like it's a little low. The white blood cell count is definitely increased. So some of you will be saying, well, if white blood cell is increased, then perhaps this patient has an infection, and you'll probably be right? If white blood cell count is high, then you have to actively say that the patient has an infection going on somewhere. Platelet count is low. Prothrombin time, INRO, not too much to see there. Then we look at the serum values. From these blood values, we can conclude that we think this patient has some form of infection going on. And it looks like his platelet count is low, meaning that he has an infection, and maybe he has DIC, because remember that one of the things that sepsis will cause is DIC. We are not looking at the vignette, we are making interpretations of the labs. A high white blood cell count means that there's an infection going on. Platelet count is high. What's the relationship between having an infection and having a low platelet count rather? Perhaps there is sepsis, and sepsis is causing DIC. That would make a lot of sense. Then we look at the serum values. Alkaline phosphatase is somewhat elevated. So, okay, maybe something is going on around the liver, the gallbladder area. AST, ALT is elevated. But more importantly, and this is something a lot of students have memorized, so you should be good with this one, is that it's elevated in the ratio of about 2:1. That rings a bell immediately. AST to ALT ratio of about 2:1 shouts or screams of alcoholic liver disease. So you go, boom, this patient has alcoholic liver disease, and perhaps he has what? An infection on top of that, right? He may have an alcoholic liver disease, or he may already have liver disease and also have an infection. Then the question I asked my students when we were looking at these labs is, what would you be looking for in this vignette to confirm for sure that this patient has alcoholic liver disease? What would they put among the labs here, or what could they have added to the lab values to say this is 100% alcoholic liver disease? And he accurately told me that would be an increase in GGT. Bilirubin is high, so there's certainly liver disease. Calcium is low. BUN, creatinine, you see he has some form of renal problem going on as well. Sodium is slightly decreased. Potassium is okay. We don't care about a lot of these other guys. And albumin is slightly decreased as well. So when you look at this vignette, two things shout at you. This patient has an infectious process going on. There's an infection, and there's probably some form of DIC as well. Secondly, this patient has alcoholic liver disease. Two differential diagnoses. There's an infection, there's probably sepsis and DIC potentially. And second, there's alcoholic liver disease. When you go to the options now, results of which of the following are most likely to be abnormal in this patient? Results of which of the following are most likely to be abnormal in this patient? If we go right off our interpretation, we came up with two things. We said this patient has alcoholic liver disease or some form of infection that potentially has led to sepsis and DIC. We got all this right off the labs alone. So when we look at this, antimitochondrial antibody test has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. Doppler ultrasound of the abdomen What are you talking about? Maybe you can see something on ultrasound of the abdomen, who knows, right? Hepatitis virus panel, we said it's alcoholic liver disease, not hepatitis liver disease or something like that. Serum gamma glutamyl transferase activity, this is GGT. Urine copper excretion is Wilson's disease. We know it's not Wilson's disease. So we can say for certain, we know this patient has alcoholic liver disease. And based on that interpretation of the lab values, we can confidently and safely say that this patient has an increase in serum GGT. So we did not need to see the vignette, and I will show you the vignette so that you can also read the vignette and all of that. But just going off the lab values alone, we can reach the conclusion that if this patient has alcoholic liver disease, GGT is specific for alcoholic liver disease. So we expect that he also has an elevation in his serum GGT. When you look at the vignette here, for those of you that would really like to see the vignette, you can see how lengthy this vignette is. And a lot of students will take 50 seconds to read a vignette like this and then go look at the lab values and probably not make sense of the lab values and end up missing the question, which I think was what my student did. But what you want to realize is by interpreting the labs, the vignette is just secondary. You save time already because you technically you know your answer. You can read the vignette just to make sure you're not missing anything and to make sure there's no confusion somewhere. But interpreting your lab values is one of the most important things you can do, and this is why I actually highlight that point a lot in the test taking mastery course, which is going to be available to all of you in a while. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to see even more videos related to the USMLE, and that will help you achieve your goal on these exams.